I'm curious, with the community that you have and all the people that you've interviewed on your podcast and interacted with over the years, what do you feel like the biggest lesson you've learned since 2015 when you first started?
Dude, honestly, I've probably said this on like 50 podcasts now, and this applies to so much more than just real estate. It's so simple, and yet I see it every damn day. I just recorded a video on this. I didn't post it to Instagram yet. I need to do that when we get done talking, but uh, filter the advice you receive through the lens of whether or not the person you're talking to has achieved what you want to in that specific area. And the reason I say the specific area is because, like, when I was struggling with my marriage, I actually realized, hey, if I talk to my friend who got divorced and is now happy, he will tell me, hey, like, red flags, move on. And if I talk to my dad, who just celebrated his 40th anniversary, like, he's going to tell me about how great marriage is if you stick it out and help me. Of course, he was also a marriage counselor, but like, you go talk to someone who's been married for 70 years. Like, they're not going to tell you should get divorced. They're going to be like, it's a bump in the road. If you love her, stick it out. It's worth it. And so it's similarly like what I find with like the real estate space or anything with like people who chase goals is like, if you put this in the context of, let's say, hey, Kirby, you want to go be a UFC world-class MMA fighter, right? Your mom, I'm making an assumption here. So if I'm striking a nerve, I mean the general mom, loves you and wants what's best for you. And she probably doesn't know anything about UFC. And so you're not going to go to your mom, who has your best interest at heart and loves you and has your back and supports you in everything, and be like, teach me how to fight. And you're not going to listen when she starts telling you, when you go to like a professional MMA coach, like, I don't know, I'm drawing a blank now on, anyway, you're not going to go to like Chris Weidman or whatever and Khabib and be like, hey, I'm taking lessons with Khabib. And your mom's like, I really don't think you should throw that hook. And you're going to be like, hey, Khabib, like, sorry, my mom, she loves me. She said I shouldn't do that, so I'm just not going to do that. You're going to listen to Khabib because he's the best freaking fighter ever. Yet for some damn reason, when we get into real estate investing, it's like, yo, Kirby, I'm super stoked about this real estate investing. And then your mom's like, I heard you have to deal with tenants and toilets. That's scary. Your uncle had a bad tenant once, and it he got divorced because of it and ruined his life. And you're like, oh, so this person who, you don't own any real estate, and you heard a story about a guy who bought one rental. Yeah, I should listen to you instead of the guy who has 30 short-term rentals and doesn't have to work unless he feels like it. That makes sense. Yeah. Like, it's so weird to me. And so, like, I always just tell people, I'm like, look, it is totally okay to be like, hey, Dan Bilzerian is great with women. Maybe not relationships, but, however you want to look at it, right? Like, he is the man. But I probably shouldn't listen to him about marriage because he don't know about it. Or, I don't know, take whatever extreme example you want. Like Donald Trump, great at building massive hotels and towers. Don't agree with him politically. Maybe I won't ask him about politics, but I could probably still benefit from asking him about a hotel. Like, whatever example you want to use, like, it's totally okay to go to somebody, get the advice that you want from that person who's living that life in that role, and then was like, I don't know, we'll just say you've got some billionaire friend who owns all the real estate in New York City or wherever, but is divorced. Cool. Mm-hmm. Maybe you learn from him about real estate and don't ask him about relationships. There's nothing wrong with that. But for some reason, we just think we should take advice from everyone about everything. And it drives me nuts because I see it all the time. People are like, I'm going to get started. What do I do? And I'm like, I would do these things. And then they're like, well, my mom said, and I'm like, does your mom own rentals?
Yeah.
Well, no.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I guess that's the thing that I would say is like, that just is a recurring truth in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so true. And I think on the other end of the spectrum too, even people that seem like they have a lot of experience, you got to be careful with. I think I fell into that trap in the beginning. My partners and I paid to go to some, seminars and stuff, and some of them were great, and others, it's this used car salesman on stage with this picture in front of his private jet, never done a deal before, and he's telling everyone how to, that he's going to teach them if they pay him, enough money. And I realized after a while of that, first off, do I want my life to look like this guy's life who's on
Yep.
stage? And then also, what is he actually doing when he's off stage? And so getting super clear on the outcome that you want, for your life, your days to look like. Does it align with the person that you're getting advice from? That's such great advice. Yeah. In terms of, I'm curious about the boutique hotels because I'm in the Airbnb space, and we've talked on your show a little bit about the difference between Airbnb, a typical Airbnb, and a hotel. What drove you to pursue a hotel, and a pretty large hotel with multiple pools and really nice hotel?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, one of the last wholesale deals I did, and we didn't actually wholesale it, so I shouldn't call it that, off-market deals, was a small town about 40 minutes from where I live. And I got a hold of the guy. He had a house he wanted to offload, but he was like, look, I'm done with this whole real estate thing. You can have it if you want it, but you got to buy everything. And I'm like, what's everything? And he's like, well, I have a 15-unit apartment, I have a 23-unit apartment, and I have a 40-unit hotel. And it used to be I don't know, Courtesy Inn or something, Comfort Inn. And but it had no flag anymore. He had bought it from the bank. It had gone under bad management. When we bought it, somebody called the phone at one point and was like, "Do you guys still take a hit of heroin for a night's stay?" I'm like, "No,
Oh,
we are not that guy anymore. Sorry. You probably shouldn't call public places and say that." But like it had really bad issues. So the guy bought it, and he was going to convert it into an assisted living facility, and basically it was the only hotel in town, and the town was like, nope, we need a hotel. So he didn't want to manage a hotel. I get that. And that was pretty much the thing. He just was done. And so we went back and forth. We found a decent price, negotiated a bunch of stuff. We made a ton of mistakes. We've been trying to sell that hotel for like a year now. And it's not that it won't sell. It's just that we're not going to take a haircut on it, and we don't need to. And the biggest mistake with that was like, we didn't understand the location, the demographics. Like, that city is just not trying to grow. They're not helping themselves. They're very old, like farmer kind of, you're not with us, you're against us for any like new, it's weird. But all these issues with that hotel, I had two partners, and of the three of us, two have basically sworn off hotels for life. And I was like, realistically, like when we bought this thing, it made like 180K in revenue. We're at like 330 right now. We put a bunch of capex into it, but if we hadn't, we would have cash flowed pretty well. We've got all these issues, but we've also done all this. And I'm like, I just kind of realized like it's a lot of work, but if we did this on the right property in the right space, we could have made a freaking killing with this guy. And we still can. Like we're still profitable on the whole deal, by the way. Like, we've all got our capital back plus probably 2x already, and we still own the hotel. So we'll see what happens when that sells. But it's just, it was a learning curve. And so, when Blake, my partner on this other hotel, found it and was starting to talk through it, it had the location, it had the cool look, it had the amenities, it had the room to grow, and it had the terrible operations that we had seen when we first took over this one. And I mean, I was able to go on Google, look at reviews, go on social media, look at the only video about it, and a couple of other things, and just basically go, lot of room to grow on this bad boy, and it currently works. So what if and he's like, we actually raised for a real renovation budget, and like that one's going to be nice. And so, what kind of turned me towards it is like, I'm not a huge multifamily apartment guy. I think that got like a little overwatered or watered down or whatever over the last few years. I think it'll take a few years till that comes around to where it's something I really want to pursue. But all the multifamily like syndicator guys, their whole pitch has always been, hey, it's like long-term rentals, but economies of scale. You get, one roof for 60 rooms instead of 60 roofs for 60 rooms. And you get, all the things. And that's Airbnb with hotels. Like, you get one roof, or in our case, it's 8 buildings. So 8 roofs for 130 keys instead of 130 roofs. But it's also 8 roofs for, I'll give you the whole perspective here. It's 130 keys with a 150-person wedding venue, 3 pools, 2 hot tubs. We're putting a gym in, and by the time we're done, we should have a like coffee shop with a restaurant, because we've got another building that we don't know what to do with, and we're probably just going to put food and beverage in. So it'll be 8 rooms for that, or 8 roofs for that, with and we're going to do a $3 million budget renovation so that it'll be nice. It's not actually like structurally, it's great. It's just, the guy hadn't updated it in 20 years. So we're going to make the rooms sexy, and then we'll update the operations a little bit, and it's going to do very well. And like when we bought it, the guy wasn't on Expedia. The guy wasn't on Airbnb. The guy wasn't on
Wow.
booking.com. Like there's a lot of room to grow. The reviews will
Yeah.
go up. I'll make social media content once it's really at that point, like YouTube and stuff, SEO and whatever, and I'll trump whatever's out there for it, and we'll start to see that revenue increase. And I think the real kicker is like it's all the economies of scale, plus it's a commercially zoned asset that the city wanted there. So you do not have to worry about them ever putting out a regulation that'll hurt you as an Airbnb. If anything, if other Airbnbs start popping up all over the place, and we've seen this in big cities, and it starts hurting your business, you go, hey, city, you're going to lose this much in tax revenue from us if we go under. And the city's
Yeah.
going to go, screw you, little Airbnb guy. We don't want you. We want the hotel. And so, like, you've actually got, that was kind of what drew me to it. I'm like, look, the operations suck. So there's a barrier to entry. Most people are not going to buy a damn hotel. And then you can buy them at a discount right now because of COVID. And then if you buy something that's poorly managed from the running joke in the hotel world is you buy from a Patel. Patel is a last name, an Indian last name. And that class or clan in India is like notoriously, that's what they do, hotels. And anyone who's listening to this and thinks I'm racist, go to Facebook and type Patel Hotel Motel. There is a 60,000 person Facebook group full of people with the last name Patel who buy and sell hotels and want to manage them. What they do, like this is their typical style. They go in, they buy a hotel that they can live in and manage themselves. They have the team and they run bare bones, and they will basically, they don't run it into the dirt. Like that makes me sound like I'm an asshole. They bleed it. And so they run it for 20 years. They put as little as they possibly can into renovations, capex, making it sexy, making it pop. They basically run it as bare bones as humanly possible, and they capitalize on that as much as possible. And by the time they get ready to sell 20 years down the road, the thing's doubled in value, so it doesn't really matter. They still make out. And so these guys, and I'm not saying it's a bad model or a good model, but it provides us the opportunity to go in. We buy it at fair market value, but at fair market value for an underperforming asset, they make out because they've got equity, so they're still happy. And then we go in and we're like, this dude hadn't updated anything. The wedding venue needs help. One of the pools is down. The operations are basically non-existent for the last 20 years of tech improvements. We're going to turn all that on, and we will be great. And so it's a win-win-win-win-win. And yeah, I guess that's kind of in a nutshell. I'm like, dude, and for reference on this one, we are 2 miles outside Smoky Mountain National Park, but we're in a town called Townsend, which is about 25 minutes from Pigeon Forge and about 35 from Gatlinburg, but it's like south. And so if anyone's familiar with that area, you've got the park and Gatlinburg, which is like the gross, dirty Vegas version of Smoky Mountains that everybody goes to and gambles and drinks and parties and then, throws up on the sidewalk. And it feels like, honestly, New Orleans and Vegas are cleaner than Gatlinburg. Then you got Pigeon Forge, which is way cleaner, but super overcrowded. Like that's where Dollywood is and all the chaos. And like there's some beautiful, really cool stuff there. There's traffic and it's a city and ugh. And then you've got south and kind of between both of those in a V is Townsend, which has doubled in population in the last 15 years, has, it's only like 10,000 people. So like I say that, it's not huge. It's like a 2-lane road that winds through Townsend, and there's like 5 restaurants, a distillery, a coffee house, and a couple hotels, and it just tracks into the back end of the park, and it's beautiful. It still has views. You're not overcrowded. Like, so in my head, I'm like, okay, over the next decade, this is going to be more crowded, and we're right outside the park. It's beautiful. And so it's the whole hotel is like log cabins with like green metal roofs and like rustic theme. It's super cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I think people will overlook a lot of those fundamentals. Like what you just went through is just so many fundamentals of just like, okay, it makes sense, that the deal fundamentals, when you put them together, it makes sense. So what's the like increase that you think you'll get average nightly rate in terms of rooms?
So, well, I'd be more important for more likely to be accurate when I speak for this. So let me at least give you this first because I'm not the daily operator. So, um, we paid 7.7. We're putting 3 mil in, and we've got a tentative post appraisal at 14. So that's
Wow.
kind of the metrics there. Um, I want to say we're sitting around like 145 rev par, and I think we're looking at like 175 ish.
Okay.
So we'll kind of see, what that looks like. Realistically, Blake would. I actually missed the last GP call because I was in Costa Rica getting drunk. Blake would. It was actually just the time zone. I was sitting at the computer and I'm like logged on, and then they were like, I was hopped in and they were like, "Hey, we just ended." I'm like, "Oh shoot, I'm an hour further than I thought." But yeah, he's definitely more on the ball for that. But it's about a $30 rev par increase that we anticipate, but also an occupancy increase. That's the bigger
Yeah.
kick. Is like, or I guess I should say, so average daily night would be $30 increase. Rev par will go up because we were operating around like 55-60% occupancy,
Mm.
depending on the season.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously worse in low season. Not bad, but when we turned all the bookings on in December, we actually had to like give people money back for like 12 rooms because we overbooked. We were like, oh shoot.
Wow.
Or like our systems just broke the system. So we need to like, so we still haven't like fully cranked, third party booking, Airbnb advertising. And we're not running any ads right now. So we're like, we need to wait till we're renovated and, and nice before we really turn that on.